Okay, this is going to be the reading of the article. So here we go. 2000 Visions of Tomorrow. We await its arrival with the same anticipation we had as children watching the odometer on the family's old Chevy turn to a row of zeros. But when it rolls around less than 11 years from now, will we know how to greet it? Will we call it 2000, 2000, or perhaps resort to the lingo of the 80s and just say 20-something? A more serious question looms ahead. Can the next century possibly live up to our expectations for a better tomorrow? Much of the future looks promising. We will eat better and live longer. Will we we will work less and stay home more. Technology will befriend us, freeing us of boring tasks and linking us still closer to the world at large. Our newest neighbors may be extraterrestrial, our next platoon of soldiers robotic. As we become increasingly aware of the fragility of the Earth, we will have to treat it more kindly. On the following pages, after consulting experts in fields ranging from demography to industrial design to medicine to interstellar travel, Life previews the changes that will follow the zeros on our calendar. Welcome to the first pictures and dispatches of 20-something. Okay. The Ritz Hotel in London has received a letter from a young man who wants to reserve a table at 8 o'clock on December 31st. The Ritz Hotel in London has received a letter from a young man who wants to reserve a table for 4 at 8 o'clock on December 31st, 1999. The hotel has consented to the booking, asking only that the fellow reconfirm a little nearer the time. There you are. Reservations, to say nothing of ruminations, have commenced. Still 11 years off, the year 2000 has begun to bug people. Oh, I got it wrong before. I don't know why I said 21. I meant 11. Just the other day, in a barbershop in Georgia, 2 men got into a row over which car would carry more cachet into the 21st century, a 1999 model or 2000, the last of the old or the first of the new. More important, what would be the damn thing's capabilities? Could tomorrow's car drive itself, levitate its way out of a jam, perform surgery? Haven't we always expected the miraculous at this, above all this hinge of history? Wasn't it Captain Midnight who told us so? Society has always gotten a kick out of looking ahead. It was harmless fun, particularly in the middle, more or less comfortable period of our own century. There was a time 40 years ago when they told us ravenous hunger would be sated with a meager pill. In cartoons, they moistened the pill on a bare plate, and the pill metamorphosed into a steak dinner, baked potato and broccoli on the side. A Rutgers University microbiologist, Dr. Tom Monfil, has a perfectly satisfactory explanation for the absence of the food tablet. We won't ever be eating our food in pills for the same reason we won't be making our babies in test tubes. Eating is fun, he said. Anyway, by this day and age, we thought we'd all be flying around with little cylinders on our backs like scuba divers in the air. And come to think of it, wasn't there supposed to be a robot mixing the martinis along about now? I can't talk. Business, on the other hand, has never found the future much of a laughing matter. A business can be solidly in the black, with all its employees securely aware of its standing, and still send a memorandum round calling for belt tightening. This happens when business thinks it sees the future and thinks it looks parlous. Consider a carbon paper company in 1960 if it's not too depressing. While most people are merely curious about the great beyond, business demands to know it, for that is good business. Ultimately, of course, business brings on the future. We're just talking about technological breakthroughs here, nothing metaphysical. So it is only right that it treats the turn of the century dead seriously. If you thought the personal computer, the compact disc, and the video cassette recorder were something, business says, you ain't seen nothing yet. The next decade is expected to release 10 times as many innovations as the last. We have to use one major advance every 25 years, a drug executive says. Now we have one every 24 hours. To that, a manufacturer of electronic products adds, if it works, it's obsolete. That we'll have a world of better gimmicks is a given. Pocket-sized computers you can talk to, for goodness sake. Ha, that's funny. So-called smart houses that pretty much run themselves. Televisions as small as the palm of the hand, as big as the living room wall. But what of the even bigger picture? Health, say. The experts allow that they not only be able to replace more body parts than they do now, they hope to be able to regrow some as well. And diseases, immunologists say it should be possible to prevent insulin dependent diabetes, multiple sclerosis, and rheumatoid arthritis by the year 2000. The rheumatoid arthritis one, no. But a slew of other scourges will linger. Sadly, AIDS has a 50-50 chance of staying with us for years to come. Luckily, we did some things with that. Anyway. And what of that terrible exercise called war, fought over land that doesn't care and for ideas soon forgotten? While not retrenching, the superpowers at least have reached a stage of talk. Elsewhere lies fragility. The Middle East, for one, remains as delicate as the ceasefire between a newly formed smoker and the nearest open pack of cigarettes. Without war, writes Edward Cornish in a book called The Study of the Future, people would argue that we have lost one of mankind's great goads to progress. Oh yes, progress. In the middle of the 20th century, it was estimated that the pace of change was as much as 50 times greater than the average pace in previous centuries. In 1961, theologian Alvin Pitcher at the University of Chicago asked, "How much flux can man stand?" Doesn't progress, change, also beget disorientation, uncertainty, apprehension? For all the achievements to come, there is a price. It carries a buzz phrase. It is called unintended consequence, and it streaks through the conversations of professional planners and futurists like the veins of chocolate in a bowl of fudge ripple. Would you, for instance, be in favor of an invention that is responsible for 50,000 deaths a year in the United States, as well as 2 million injuries and $20 billion in property damage and urban sprawl and the decline of the inner cities and the deterioration of public transportation and of pollution that causes unknown thousands of deaths from emphysema, lung cancer, and heart disease, and the conversion of thousands of acres of farmland and scenic countryside into asphalt? If not, then should we ban the automobile? The World Future Society in Bethesda, Maryland, would not, but it does not shy using the car to make an example of technology's unintended results. All things considered, the Society says in one of its publications, the benefits of the automobile may outweigh the costs, but the automobile shows how technology exacts heavy costs when it provides benefits. The fears and criticisms of technology may be exaggerated, but they are not without foundation. Everything has a downside, futurists say. There is utopia, and then there is dystopia. We have put astronauts on the moon, seen 3 burned alive on the pad, seen 7 blown off the face of the earth. Talk about mixed blessings. Prolong the lifespan and you get regional overpopulation and more problems of the aged. This too from Cornish's book. Replace manual labor with machines and you exacerbate unemployment. To merely satisfy basic human needs can spawn worldwide rising expectations. Is that really execrable? Refrigeration and television have isolated more people than the Gulag ever thought to. Gad. If the weather in London became sunny and pleasant, one tea leaf reader wrote a few years ago, there would be an outcry from people claiming that smog is a precious part of the city's heritage. If disease were finally eliminated, people would worry that there no longer was any acceptable way to get rid of old people. Have we just been listening to a catastrophist, a calamitist? If so, isn't it about time to switch instruments, maestro? Then consider this. In 1969, the Secretary General of the United Nations, U Thant, told the members that they had about 10 years to clean up the world's act, otherwise bluey. Last year, the UN won the Nobel Peace Prize. In 1901, H.G. Wells, author of The War of the Worlds and The Time Machine, said, "I must confess that my imagination, in spite even of spurring, refuses to see any sort of submarine doing anything but suffocating its crew and floundering at sea." In 1932, American diplomat William C. Bullitt wrote to President-elect Franklin D. Roosevelt as follows. Hitler's influence is waning so fast that the government is no longer afraid of the growth of the Nazi movement. In 1969, biophysicist John Platz said, "We may have even less than a 50-50 chance of living until 1980. We made it anyway, and without cryogenics. Remember that fad? We were going to use a temperature of negative 320 degrees Fahrenheit to preserve organic matter, a la The Thing. We were going to freeze ourselves and not thaw out until we agreed with the way life was being conducted. We should have had more sense, should have taken our cue from Sir Francis Bacon, who died testing the hypothesis in 1626. He caught pneumonia while stuffing a chicken with snow. To the future, then. In 1899, futurists were predicting the death of cities. They believed that the noise and filth would get ghastlier by the year. Moreover, they believed that the horse traffic, and specifically the horse droppings, would choke us. The automobile, that contraption that wrought such awful change, rescued us from equine ruin. To the future. And more time.